What if you were chosen to confront the most powerful empire on earth with nothing but a wooden staff and the words of an invisible God? What if freedom for an entire nation depended on your willingness to walk back into the very place you had fled, to stand before the throne of a king who wanted you dead, and to demand the impossible? This is the story of Moses, a Hebrew slave who became an Egyptian prince, a fugitive who became a prophet, and a shepherd who became the deliverer of millions. It is the story of 10 devastating plagues, a night of death and deliverance, and the moment when the sea itself stood aside to let God's people pass. This is the Exodus, the greatest act of liberation the ancient world had ever witnessed. 400 years of silence. 4 centuries had passed since Joseph had saved Egypt from famine, since Jacob's family had settled in the fertile land of Goshen, since the Hebrews had been honored guests in the most powerful nation on earth. But time has a way of erasing memory. A new Pharaoh arose over Egypt, one who did not know Joseph. He looked upon the Hebrews, who had multiplied greatly and filled the land, and he saw not grateful immigrants, but a dangerous threat. "Behold, the people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us," Pharaoh declared to his advisors. "Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply, and if war breaks out, they join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land." And so the oppression began. The Egyptians set taskmasters over the Hebrews and afflicted them with heavy burdens. They forced them to build the great store cities of Pithom and Ramses, monuments to Egyptian glory constructed with Hebrew blood and sweat. They made their lives bitter with hard service, in mortar and brick, and in all kinds of work in the fields. But the more the Egyptians oppressed them, the more the Hebrews multiplied. Fear gave way to cruelty. Pharaoh issued a decree that chilled the blood of every Hebrew mother. "Every son that is born to the Hebrews you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live." The river that gave Egypt life became a grave for Hebrew children. Soldiers patrolled the villages, searching for newborn boys. The cries of grieving mothers echoed through the slave quarters of Goshen. It was genocide, systematic and merciless, designed to break the spirit of a people and ensure they would never rise. Into this darkness, a child was born. A Levite woman gave birth to a son, and when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him for 3 months. She kept him silent when the soldiers passed, muffled his cries, prayed that no neighbor would betray them. But a baby cannot be hidden forever. The child grew, and his voice grew with him. When she could hide him no longer, she took a basket made of bulrushes and daubed it with bitumen and pitch. She placed the child in it and set it among the reeds by the riverbank. His sister Miriam stood at a distance, watching to see what would happen to him. The Nile, the instrument of Pharaoh's genocide, became the vessel of divine deliverance. Pharaoh's daughter came down to bathe at the river. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her servant to bring it. When she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby was crying. She took pity on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrews' children." At that moment, Miriam appeared. "Shall I go and call you a nurse from the Hebrew women to nurse the child for you?" The princess agreed, and Miriam ran to fetch her own mother. Pharaoh's daughter said to the Hebrew woman, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." The irony was profound. The child marked for death would be raised in the house of the king who had ordered his murder. The future deliverer of Israel would be educated in all the wisdom of Egypt, trained in the courts of Pharaoh, prepared by providence for a mission he did not yet know existed. When the child grew older, his mother brought him to Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses, saying, "Because I drew him out of the water." Moses grew up between two worlds. In the palace, he was an Egyptian prince, clothed in fine linen, educated by the finest scholars, entitled to every privilege the empire could offer. But somewhere deep within him, he knew he was not Egyptian. He was Hebrew. His people were slaves. Their suffering called to him across the gulf of privilege and power. One day, when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people and looked on their burdens. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. Moses looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. It was an act of righteous anger, but also an act of murder. Moses had chosen his people over his position. He had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The next day, Moses saw two Hebrews fighting. He said to the one in the wrong, "Why do you strike your companion?" The man replied with words that struck terror into Moses' heart. "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Moses was afraid. The secret was out. When Pharaoh heard of it, he sought to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to the land of Midian. From prince to fugitive in a single day. Moses had tried to deliver his people in his own strength, in his own timing, by his own methods, and he had failed completely. Now he was a wanted man, wandering in the wilderness, his grand purpose seemingly destroyed before it had begun. In Midian, Moses found refuge with a priest named Jethro. He married Jethro's daughter Zipporah and became a shepherd, tending flocks in the wilderness. The man who had walked the marble halls of Pharaoh's palace now walked the rocky paths of the desert, following sheep from pasture to pasture. 40 years passed. 40 years of silence. 40 years of obscurity. 40 years of tending sheep, while his people groaned under the whip. Moses was now 80 years old, his hair gray, his body weathered by decades of desert sun. Whatever dreams he had once harbored of delivering Israel must have seemed like the foolish ambitions of youth. But God had not forgotten. During those many days, the king of Egypt died, and the people of Israel groaned because of their slavery and cried out for help. Their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God, and God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew. Then Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, and led them to the west side of the wilderness, and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. Moses looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. Moses turned aside to see this strange sight, a bush that burned without being destroyed. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, "Moses, Moses!" And Moses said, "Here I am." "Do not come near," God said. "Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, "I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt, and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land, to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Moses, the failed deliverer, the fugitive, the shepherd of sheep, was being commissioned to confront the most powerful ruler on earth. His response was not confidence, but doubt. Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? God's answer was not a list of Moses' qualifications. It was a promise of presence. I will be with you. But Moses pressed further. If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, "The God of your fathers has sent me to you," and they ask me, "What is his name?" what shall I say to them? God said to Moses, "I am who I am. Say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. I am, the name that declares existence itself, the name that needs no explanation because it is the source of all explanation. The eternal, self-existent God was revealing himself to a stuttering shepherd in the wilderness. Still, Moses resisted. They will not believe me. They will say, "The Lord did not appear to you." God gave Moses signs. His staff became a serpent. His hand became leprous and then was healed. Water from the Nile would turn to blood. But Moses had one more objection. "Oh, my Lord, I am not eloquent, either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue." The Lord replied, "Who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall speak." But Moses said, "Oh, my Lord, please send someone else." Then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses. Yet even in his anger, God showed mercy. He appointed Aaron, Moses' brother, to be his spokesman. "Is there not Aaron, your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. He shall speak for you to the people, and he shall be your mouth, and you shall be as God to him." By the way, if you find any of these videos interesting or enjoyable, please consider subscribing. These take a long time to make, and it really helps out. Moses returned to Egypt. The shepherd who had fled as a fugitive now walked back as a prophet. He and Aaron gathered the elders of Israel and told them everything the Lord had said. They performed the signs before the people, and they believed. When they heard that the Lord had visited the people of Israel and that he had seen their affliction, they bowed their heads and worshipped. Then came the confrontation that would shake the foundations of the ancient world. Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." Pharaoh's response dripped with contempt. "Who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and moreover, I will not let Israel go." That very day, Pharaoh commanded the taskmasters to increase the burden on the Hebrews. They would no longer be given straw to make bricks. They would have to gather their own straw while producing the same quota. When they failed, they were beaten. The people turned against Moses. "You have made us stink in the sight of Pharaoh and his servants," they accused, "and have put a sword in their hand to kill us." Moses cried out to the Lord, "O Lord, why have you done evil to this people? Why did you ever send me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, and you have not delivered your people at all." But the Lord said to Moses, "Now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand he will send them out, and with a strong hand he will drive them out of his land. What followed was the most dramatic confrontation between divine power and human pride in all of Scripture. The first plague began at the river. Moses stretched out his staff over the waters of Egypt, and all the water in the Nile turned to blood. The fish died. The river stank. The Egyptians could not drink from it. Blood was everywhere, in their canals, their palms, their vessels of wood and stone. For 7 days the land of Egypt was drenched in crimson. But Pharaoh's heart was hardened. He would not listen. Then came the frogs. They swarmed up from the Nile and covered the land. Frogs in the houses, in the bedrooms, in the ovens, in the kneading bowls. Pharaoh begged Moses to pray for relief and promised to let the people go. But when the frogs died and the land was cleared, Pharaoh hardened his heart again. The dust of the earth became gnats, swarming over man and beast. The magicians of Egypt, who had imitated some of the earlier signs, could not replicate this plague. "This is the finger of God," they told Pharaoh. But still he would not listen. Swarms of flies descended upon Egypt, so thick they darkened the sky. But in the land of Goshen, where the Hebrews lived, there were no flies. God was making a distinction between his people and the Egyptians. A devastating plague struck the livestock of Egypt. Horses, donkeys, camels, herds, and flocks died in the fields. But not one animal belonging to the Israelites perished. Boils broke out on the Egyptians, painful sores covering their skin. The magicians could not even stand before Moses because the boils were so severe. Hail fell from the sky, the worst hailstorm in Egypt's history. Fire ran down to the earth along with the ice. Everything left in the open was struck down. Plants, trees, animals, and people. Only in Goshen, where Israel dwelt, was there no hail. Locusts came on an east wind, covering the ground until it was black, devouring every plant the hail had left behind. Not a green thing remained in all the land of Egypt. Then darkness. For 3 days, a darkness so thick it could be felt covered Egypt. No one could see anyone else or rise from their place. But all the people of Israel had light where they lived. 9 plagues had devastated the greatest nation on earth. The economy was shattered. The gods of Egypt had been systematically humiliated, for each plague targeted a deity the Egyptians worshipped. The Nile god Hapi, the frog goddess Heket, the sun god Ra, all had been proven powerless before the God of Israel. Yet Pharaoh's heart remained hard. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Yet 1 plague more I will bring upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterward, he will let you go from here." This final plague would strike at the very heart of Egyptian power, at the throne itself. "About midnight I will go out in the midst of Egypt, and every firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on his throne, even to the firstborn of the slave girl who is behind the handmill, and all the firstborn of the cattle. There shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there has never been, nor ever will be again." But for the children of Israel, God provided a way of escape. "Tell all the congregation of Israel that on the 10th day of this month, every man shall take a lamb according to their fathers' houses, a lamb for a household. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male a year old. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill their lambs at twilight. Then they shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and the lintel of the houses in which they eat it. They shall eat the flesh that night, roasted on the fire, with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. And Moses explained the meaning. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt that night, and I will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. The blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and no plague will befall you to destroy you. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. That night the Israelites gathered in their homes. The lambs had been slain. The blood had been applied to the doorframes. They ate standing, their sandals on their feet, their staffs in their hands, ready to move at a moment's notice. At midnight, the Lord struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat on his throne, to the firstborn of the captive who was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of the livestock. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where someone was not dead. Death moved through the land, silent and unstoppable. In the palace, Pharaoh's own son died. In the mansions of the wealthy, in the homes of the poor, in the barracks of the soldiers, the firstborn fell. Wailing filled the night, the sound of a nation's grief, the cost of one man's stubborn pride. But in Goshen there was silence. The angel of death saw the blood on the doorposts and passed over. Not one Hebrew child died that night. Pharaoh summoned Moses and Aaron in the darkness. Up, go out from among my people, both you and the people of Israel, and go, serve the Lord, as you have said. Take your flocks and your herds, as you have said, and be gone, and bless me also. The Egyptians were urgent with the people to send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we shall all be dead. And so, after 430 years, the people of Israel went out from the land of Egypt. 600,000 men on foot, besides women and children. A mixed multitude also went up with them, and very much livestock, both flocks and herds. They had entered Egypt as a family of 70. They left as a nation of millions. But the story was not over. Pharaoh's grief turned to rage. Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? He gathered his army, 600 chosen chariots, and all the other chariots of Egypt, with officers over all of them, and pursued the people of Israel. The Hebrews had camped by the sea. When they saw the dust cloud of Pharaoh's army approaching, terror gripped them. They cried out to Moses, "Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us away to die in the wilderness? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." Behind them, the most powerful army on earth. Before them, an uncrossable sea. They were trapped. But Moses spoke words that have echoed through every impossible situation God's people have ever faced. "Fear not, stand firm, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will work for you today. For the Egyptians whom you see today, you shall never see again. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why do you cry to me? Tell the people of Israel to go forward. Lift up your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and divide it, that the people of Israel may go through the sea on dry ground." The pillar of cloud that had been leading them moved behind them, standing between the camp of Israel and the camp of Egypt. There was darkness on one side and light on the other, and the two armies did not come near each other all night. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, And the Lord drove the sea back by a strong east wind all night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the people of Israel went into the midst of the sea on dry ground, the waters being a wall to them on their right hand and on their left. Imagine that moment. Walls of water rising on either side, held back by the invisible hand of God. Millions of people walking on a seabed that should have been impossible to cross. The path of deliverance cut through the very obstacle that had seemed to seal their doom. The Egyptians pursued them into the midst of the sea. But in the morning watch, the Lord looked down on the Egyptian forces and threw them into a panic. He clogged their chariot wheels so that they drove heavily. And the Egyptians said, "Let us flee from before Israel, for the Lord fights for them against the Egyptians." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may come back upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen." Moses stretched out his hand, and the sea returned to its normal course when the morning appeared. The waters covered the chariots and the horsemen, all the host of Pharaoh that had followed them into the sea. Not one of them remained. But the people of Israel walked on dry ground through the sea. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day from the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead on the seashore. Israel saw the great power that the Lord used against the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in his servant Moses. Then Moses and the people of Israel sang a song to the Lord. "I will sing to the Lord, for he has triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider he has thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation." The Exodus was complete. A nation of slaves had become a nation of free people. The most powerful empire on earth had been humbled, and the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had proven that no king, no army, no force of nature could stand against his purposes. The story of the Exodus is not merely ancient history. It is the template for the greatest deliverance of all. Just as Israel was enslaved in Egypt, we were enslaved to sin. Just as they could not free themselves, we cannot free ourselves from the bondage that holds us. Just as God heard their cries and came down to deliver them, God heard our cries and came down in the person of Jesus Christ. And just as the firstborn of Egypt died on that terrible night, so the firstborn of God died on a cross outside Jerusalem. But here is the wonder. Jesus did not die because God's judgment passed by him. He died so that judgment could pass by us. He is the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. His blood, applied to the doorposts of our hearts, causes the judgment we deserve to pass over us. When I see the blood, I will pass over you. The Passover lamb had to be without blemish, and Christ was without sin. The lamb's bones could not be broken, and though Christ was crucified between two thieves, not one of his bones was broken. The blood had to be applied to be effective, and we must personally receive what Christ has done. Just as Moses stretched out his staff and the sea parted, Jesus stretched out his arms on the cross, and the barrier between God and humanity was torn in two. Just as Israel walked through on dry ground with walls of water on either side, we walk through death itself with Christ, emerging on the other side into resurrection life. Pharaoh thought he had won when he saw the Israelites trapped at the sea. Satan thought he had won when he saw Jesus dead in the tomb. But God specializes in turning impossible situations into monuments of His glory. The sea that should have drowned Israel drowned their enemies instead. The grave that should have held Jesus became the doorway to eternal life. Perhaps you feel trapped today. Behind you, a past you cannot escape. Before you, an obstacle you cannot overcome. The enemy is closing in, and there seems to be no way out. But the same God who parted the Red Sea is still fighting for His people. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead is available to you. Fear not. Stand firm. See the salvation of the Lord. He is still the God who makes a way where there is no way. He is still the God who delivers His people from bondage. He is still the God who turns graves into gardens and defeats into victories. Your Egypt does not have the final word. Your Pharaoh cannot hold you forever. Your sea will part when God gives the command. Because the Exodus was not the end of the story, it was the beginning. And your deliverance, whatever form it takes, is not the end of your story either. It is the beginning of walking with the God who saves, the God who leads, the God who fights for you. The Lord will fight for you. You have only to be silent. And then, when the waters part and the enemy falls, and you stand on the other shore, you will sing. You will sing of the God who heard your cry, who came down to deliver you, who made a way through the impossible. I will sing to the Lord, for He has triumphed gloriously. If you have not subscribed yet, please do not forget to do so. It really helps us continue providing you with amazing videos like this.